Hello, my name is Danny Anderson, President of Trinity University, and I am here to speak with our Dean of Students and Associate Vice President for Student Life, Demi Brown. Demi was named just this last summer of 2021 to join Trinity University. Before coming to us, he was the Dean of Students and the Chief Diversity Officer at Millsaps College in Mississippi. Many of you would know that there are all kinds of connections between Trinity and Millsaps, and Demi is a great store of knowledge about some of those kinds of connections. He's also had a great career working in student-centered universities as a higher ed administrator for over 21 years. He has spent time working at Amherst, at the University of Denver, and also at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. So Demi, welcome. I am so glad that you're at Trinity. And just to get us going, I'm really curious, as you think back, what were things that attracted you to come to Trinity and to consider joining us?
You know, Danny, one of the things that I really have respected about Trinity from afar is the level of expertise about how things work here. That has absolutely been amazing. So when I'm sitting at another institution and we're working on a problem, name the problem, whatever, one of our first things we do is we benchmark, see who's doing what. Oftentimes, the reference was back. What is Trinity doing? And so that just let me know that there's a high quality here and an expectation for quality here. Mm-hmm. And so that was my first initial draw. Like, that's a place that does things right. And that inspired me to take a closer look. And of course, what I found here was a gym.
Uh-huh. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So it's not only a gym, but we've got a great gym too. All kinds of things that are wonderful about Trinity. Yeah. I love that emphasis that you're giving on the way that we're always trying to really do the very best we can, mm-hmm. and it's good to know that other people are noticing that. You know, one of the things that I would like to get you to talk about a little bit here is what it means to be a Dean of Students. Mm-hmm. I mean, many people don't even know what that role means, and I've heard you talk that a Dean of Students both has to be an advocate for the student, mm-hmm. and you're trying to represent the university. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit more about how you balance all of that?
Yeah, for me, I think it's naturally kind of easy. I think when we think about what institutions are supposed to do, they take the best interests of the students at heart, and they put them at play in lots of ways, be it in their academics, their co-curricular and extracurricular experiences, their endeavors on and off campus, right? So my job as a dean is to make sure our students are humming, that they are getting what they need in this environment to thrive. Now, occasionally there are rubs that happen, but I've never worked at an institution that didn't prioritize ultimately what was best for the students. Now, students don't always agree what's best for them, but I think in the end, institutions produce really good work that is centered at the students, and I think Dean of Students, when they're doing their work the best, help all these pieces come together and align around those student success issues.
Mm-hmm. So would you talk a little bit, as you think about Dean of Students, a lot of this has to do with sort of student life as a division in general. Most people think about the classrooms, they know faculty, but they don't understand the front line of student life professionals who are interacting with students. What would be 2 or 3 things you would like for families, prospective students, alumni to think about what it means to be a student life professional?
I think the first thing I would love for people to understand that it's our first goal is that we want to see our students be successful. We want to see them matriculate, we want to see them graduate, we want to see them meet their academic goals, we want to see them meet their personal goals. That's the first thing, and everything we do sort of aligns to that. So if we're talking about a student's residential experience, we really want that place on campus where they call home to feel as close to home as it can for them. We want to help them navigate those difficult conversations that they're having with their roommates in positive ways and ways that they can grow and develop. We want them to have a great quality food experience on campus. We want them to have access to all the services and programs that they need. But we also want that to mirror and support what they're getting in the classroom. Mm-hmm. We really want the pieces to come together for an institution. Students don't necessarily think about their college journeys as inside the classroom, outside the classroom. There's Trinity, right? And so when we as student affairs professionals and student life professionals are working with our academic partners and we're pushing all in the same direction, both those in-classroom and out-of-classroom experiences, we create a fantastic environment for our students to succeed and thrive in.
Mm-hmm. Well, it just impresses me, since you've been here and watching the way that you work with the entire team in student life, I know that you're motivated to make sure our students get that kind of an experience. You know, one of the things that I've heard you do is talk a little bit about your own background as a student.
Oh my.
And I'm just sort of wondering, could you share some early experiences that you had that give you insight now into the kind of influence that a dean of students can have in a student's life?
So I think about an experience, and I think I know the one you're talking about. I was a first-year student at my alma mater, and that first weekend we're all on campus. I had a gathering in my room, and we managed to have more people in that space than we should have. Probably around 30 people in a residence hall room. Not ideal. And we managed to break a few other rules along the way during that experience. And so the next day I get a note from my hall director saying that I needed to go visit the office of the Dean of Students because of this violation. The RA had come in that night and created an incident report about what was going on. And so I got the note from the Dean of Students office, and the Dean of Students was a retired military veteran. And he had a very stern presence of flat top haircut, and it was clear the expectation was that I was in his office at 8 o'clock in the morning, not 8:01, not 7:59. I need to be there at 8 o'clock. And I get there, and he asked me a number of questions, but mostly centered around how did I come to his campus not knowing anyone and pull together an event in a weekend and have that many people in one space. And I was terrified. I thought my academic career is over. The last thing my mother said to me before she drove off was, "Don't make me come back and kill you." And so I'm thinking I'm both going to get kicked out of school and I'll be attending my own funeral. And so those were the things that I was sort of engaged in thinking about. And then he looks at me and he says, I want you to take your energy and I want you to run for hall council. And that sort of set me on a path. And so hall council, hall government, was a local organization in a residence hall where students in the residence halls put on events for students in their own halls. And so he allowed me to serve in that capacity, and that sort of led me down my career path. That one negative interaction that he reframed in a very positive way allowed me to transform what I was doing as a student.
Wow. I love that story, in part because it's fun to imagine you as a beginning college student, you know, getting yourself into trouble like that. We all have stories like that in our past, but the word that you've used talking about it is reframe just now, and you've also talked about redirect, and I just love that image of, you know, being open to a person, learning about who they are, and figuring out how do we guide or let them be aware of choices they could make if they want to pick different paths. And that redirecting seems like such a very constructive way to think about what you do many times.
I think about it in this way, and it came from that meeting with the Dean of Students at the time, Dean Mike White, who shared with me that a Jedi and a Sith have the same skill set. It just depends on how they use it. And I thought that was a phenomenal way of looking at the energy that our students bring to us.
That's right. They have wonderful energy, and moving it in the right direction is what matters. So one of the things that I hope as you were learning about Trinity, we really work hard to be a student-centered university, to put the student experience at the heart of everything that we're doing. And I know that as you come and bring your ethos and values to us, you're looking at ways that we can improve the student experience. I'm just sort of wondering, could you talk a little bit about some of the kind of initiatives you've been engaged, you know, where you're wanting to, you know, have your own kind of influence as you look at our students and ways that we can strengthen Trinity?
The first thing I think that I've enjoyed doing is just getting to know our students. And that has involved me one-on-one conversations with them. I go to the dining hall, I share meals with them, I sit and I talk and I ask questions, and I just listen. What's important to you right now? How's your day? And that ultimately gives me a feel for what the experience is like as a student. As an administrator, I'm not sitting in the classrooms with them. I'm not feeling the stress of them moving through their syllabi throughout the term. The flow, the ebb and flow of that was the first thing I really need to get a sense of. what are students experiencing on a day-to-day basis on this campus, and regardless of their identities, right? So I've spent time talking to fraternity members. I've spent time talking to some of our a cappella group students. I've spent time talking to some of our gamers. And so it's just getting a good sense of what do our students' experiences look like. And so that was the first part that I think really helped me start understanding what's at play here. And so it's important for me to spend time also with other staff members on campus and getting a sense of their perspectives too. And then we were able to think about this as a team, because though I'm the dean of students and I have my own thoughts and ideas, I think the best work comes when we work together, bringing my team together. So what's important to us? What are we looking at? What do we want to enhance and improve for our community? And I don't know if many people outside of Trinity and outside of this conversation will understand the importance of the strategy maps that we created as an institution that really direct us. So we were to home in on a couple of things that we really wanted to focus on with our students. And one, we really do want to create a system here where our students have more participation in the rights and responsibilities part. We have a great student conduct council, but I really do want to see our students more partners in holding each other accountable to the expectations that they create for each other. That creates a healthy community.
So one of the things that I really like as I listen to this and think about some of the work you do is one of our values is intentional inclusion. And we're looking at all the ways that we create a community where there is belonging for everyone. And I'm really impressed when I've talked with you. I've learned all kinds of things, that there are topics that we will discuss. And when you discuss it, I will learn that there is an entirely non-judgmental way of talking about things. And I wasn't even aware that other language already had some values in it. And I just really admire the way that you create that space of openness for students, so they're not being shamed to talk about something. And I know that there are a lot of generational differences about things that embarrass us or don't embarrass us. But I'm just wondering, what are some of the things that you think students today most want in terms of being able to feel like I'm included, I belong here, and what are things that you would ask other members of the community to be watching for so that we can be more inclusive and promote belonging?
You know, Danny, I think one of the things that young learners are telling us around the country is that institutions, you know the things. You know the things that make our experiences good. You know the things that stress us out. You know the things that we need to be successful. Stop asking us about them and start putting them into practice. And so that's one of the things we've really got to get better at higher education, because I do think we know a lot of things that students have told us for generations of college students about their experiences. Microaggressions matter for them in both the short term and the long term. So we should have trainings in place for them, for their peers, for our faculty and staff, to make sure that those things don't happen on a college campus, or when they do happen, we have ways of dealing with them and managing them effectively. And so in that, I think it's important when we're having these conversations that we recognize that students come from all over the world, and they have a vast array of experiences. And not everyone has the same experiences when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we have to create space where students, if we want everyone to sit in that table and have those conversations, they've got to feel like they can walk into that room and that their voice is going to matter and that people are going to hear them and understand them. Now, in that process, that person may have aggrieved someone. It doesn't excuse it, but we create space and room for a person to be who they are, and we create space and room for them to grow, learn, and develop without shame and without judgment. That's critical. I think that's a critically important tool when we look at the development of young learners and young leaders.
I want to commend you, because the way that you embrace and open up and create that space of non-judgmentalism really has an impact on encouraging students to be more open about things that they have questions about. So
Well, thank you.
I love that. So if someone is going to get to know you a little bit better in this interview, what motivates you to get up in the morning?
I ultimately think what motivates me every day when I get up is to know that the work I do makes a difference, even in spaces when I don't see it. There are things that I know when I leave the office at the end of the day that more than likely I made Trinity a better place for at least one person. And that is a huge motivator for me. I think that's critically important that we think about those moments when I walk to work, you know, and I think about on the way in, I'm thinking, what's on my calendar? Who's on my calendar? What are they bringing? And I'm often reading emails as I walk in, and what happened overnight, who's going to need additional support, and how can we get there? So I think it's critically important that I think that I, as a dean of students, stay focused in on making those micro improvements every day, even though that other people may not see them.
It's exciting, and I can see you doing it. You're working at that every day. So you picked the place for this interview. Talk a little bit about being here on the porch of Skyline with the San Antonio skyline behind us. Why is this space meaningful for you?
So most people can't see it. You can't see it right now, but my office has a very similar view to this. And when I'm sitting in my office, and I had to rearrange my office because when I first got there, I was looking at it too much. And I felt like I was not getting as much done as I wanted. So I rearranged my office a little, so I have to intentionally turn around and look. But I really do think it reminds me that I am in a global city. That our work here at Trinity is a little bit different in that we're in an urban environment, that our students have a lot more opportunity than some of their peers at some of our other private institutions that look like us, that are in more secluded spaces. We're in a thriving metropolitan area, an amazingly diverse city, a city that is amazingly culturally rich, and just looking at the skyline every day reminds me of that, and also to see the growth and change in the city. It's impressive.
Yeah. So, going through questions like this, movies. You made a reference earlier to Jeddas and Siths and the different comparisons there. We've talked a lot about the most recent version of Dune.
Yes.
You know, pick a movie that you would encourage everybody to watch and maybe say why, that you think is a good one.
One of my favorite movies is, there are two versions of it. It's a movie called Imitation of Life. And it's a story of a black housekeeper with a daughter who can pass as white. And in the era in which that movie was filmed, I think it does a fantastic job at communicating the complexities of family. It lays on top power and privilege, and it lays the concept of passing on top of all of that. It is a phenomenally written, directed, acted movie. Very strong cast. But when I think about it, that movie could have been made today. And in that era, there weren't a whole lot of movies that hit the right tones and with those topics, with those complicated topics that they were presenting, and they did a fantastic job with it.
I enjoy that movie a lot too, and it's interesting the way that you link together, thinking about both the social and the racial, but also the mother-daughter dynamics there of what is going on as a family.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
really important. Yeah. So another one, what is a book that you've read recently that you'd recommend for students to consider reading?
Okay, I am on a Kiese Layman binge right now. Kiese Layman is I think one of the most inspiring young authors, contemporary authors that's out there. He's written a memoir called Heavy. And Heavy is his story of his college journey, but also more reflectively, it's a story about his relationship with his mother and the women in his life and other women in his life. It is a phenomenal story, and he's now a visiting faculty member at the University of Mississippi. And I've had the opportunity to meet him and talk to him and get a sense of why he wrote this book. I think it is probably one of the most transformative pieces of literature that's sitting out there. I wish more people would engage with it. It is fantastic.
Okay, so we've all got a book to add to our reading list. This is good. I like getting good suggestions.
Yes.
So my last question for you. We've talked a lot about Trinity. You're coming here, students, all kinds of things. If you could go back and give your own 20-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be, and how applicable is that advice to students today?
I think it's going to be pretty applicable to students today. 20 years ago, when I was a 20-year-old, I was battling depression, and I didn't know I was battling depression. I knew something was off. I knew I wasn't myself. I knew I wasn't doing some of the things I wanted to do the way I wanted to do them. People around me were saying, "Hey, are you okay?" And I was hearing that often, but it really wasn't landing and resonating with me. So if I could go back and I could speak to myself then, I would say it's okay, and there's a way to get help. I would encourage myself to go to a counseling center on my college campus and to engage with that much earlier. I did it, but I did it a little bit later than I probably should have. But I think now when we think about mental health in the contemporary area of our college students, the students are so much more aware that this is a real issue that's present amongst many of their peers. If I could go back again and give myself advice, it would be take the walk to the counseling center earlier, because thriving is on the other side of that conversation. And once I worked with a fantastic team at my alma mater, I was able to thrive. My academics improved, my social life improved. I just wish I had done that a little bit earlier.
Well, Demi, thank you so much for making time to share a little bit about
Thank
your
you.
story and your experience. I have a few comments I'll make as we wind this up, but I'm wondering, is there anything I haven't asked that you were hoping we would talk about, or some message you would like for people to know as they're getting to know you as Dean of Students through this video?
I think I would just welcome people to come by the Dean of Students office on the second floor here in the Coach Student Center and come see us. Come meet us, come hang out, come talk. I have a small budget that I have, and we'll go get a meal on campus together. We'll talk and we'll get to know each other, and that applies to all students. I've invited even parents to come along so we can get to know each other better too. I really value the contributions of our parents and families to our Trinity environment, and I want them to understand that too.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you for the time this afternoon. Everything you've talked about in terms of the ways that you connect with people, with families, with students, I've seen in action, and I just want to thank you, because knowing that we place a priority on the student experience, you're right there on the front line trying to make sure that in the bigger picture, how students experience the whole campus, it does help them reach that place where they're really going to thrive, not only on our campus, but when they move into the rest of their life. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much. So thank you all for watching us as I interviewed Demi Brown, our Dean of Students. We look forward to seeing you on campus. You can see why with new leaders like Demi, we remain a force in motion. Thank you.